While Nazi Germany was conquering Europe with tanks and guns, America discovered it was losing a different kind of war, a war against mathematical ignorance. 75% of Navy recruits in 1940 were failing navigation tests because they couldn't do basic math. Soldiers were being rejected from service because they couldn't calculate distances or decode artillery coordinates. The US military had the weapons, but their soldiers couldn't count. And in Washington, D.C., one black woman was quietly training the mathematicians who would save them. In 1943, while American soldiers fought overseas, Dr. Euphemia Lofton Haynes stood before an all-white examination committee at Catholic University and defended her doctoral dissertation in mathematics, becoming the first African-American woman in U.S. history to earn a PhD in math. But that achievement was just one battle in a much longer war she'd been fighting. The war to prove black mathematical excellence in an America that didn't believe it existed. For 13 years before that moment, since 1930, she had been building and leading the mathematics department at Minor Teachers College, training black mathematics teachers who were desperately needed as America's education system struggled to produce soldiers who could add, subtract, multiply, and navigate. This is the story of how one black woman mathematician became essential to America's wartime education crisis and how her contributions were systematically erased from history. When World War II began in Europe in 1939, the United States wasn't ready, not just militarily, but mathematically. In October 1940, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, chief of the United States Navy Bureau of Navigation, wrote a letter that shocked the education establishment. 75% of the failures in the study of navigation must be attributed to the lack of adequate knowledge of mathematics. He revealed that Navy admission standards had to be lowered by 50% because so many recruits couldn't pass basic math requirements. A candidate for military service, he wrote, cannot be regarded as adequate if he does not have sufficient knowledge of mathematics. The Army faced the same crisis. Military recruits couldn't calculate artillery trajectories, decode map coordinates, understand supply logistics, or perform the thousands of mathematical operations required in modern warfare. America's soldiers were mathematically illiterate, and it was going to cost lives. In 1944, education researcher William Betts published a devastating assessment. It was estimated that a year ago, at least 1.5 million students in our high schools were totally devoid of mathematical training beyond a very shaky acquaintance with elementary arithmetic. Why was America's mathematical education so catastrophically weak? Because between World War I and World War II, mathematics had been considered practically useless. Schools taught consumer mathematics, basic arithmetic for shopping and household budgets, while advanced mathematics was seen as unnecessary for most Americans. Teacher training programs required only 1 year of college-level mathematics to teach high school math. Many mathematics teachers didn't actually understand the math they were teaching. The entire system had collapsed. Then the war began, and suddenly mathematics became patriotic. Navigation required trigonometry. Artillery required calculus. Cryptography required abstract algebra. Supply logistics required statistics. Engineering required geometry. The military needed mathematically literate soldiers immediately, and the American education system couldn't produce them. The New York Times reported in 1941 that there would be a bottleneck in mathematics just as surely as in machine tools. America could build tanks faster than it could train soldiers to calculate firing trajectories. The federal government launched emergency programs to retrain mathematics teachers and overhaul curriculum across the country. Universities accelerated their programs, compressing 4 years of education into 3 to graduate mathematicians faster. Holy Cross College in Massachusetts reported that 85% of its student body enrolled in naval ROTC programs that emphasized mathematics, physics, and related sciences. Catholic University in Washington, D.C. created accelerated wartime courses focused on mathematics and science. The entire American education system mobilized for war, and mathematics was at the center. This is the context in which Dr. Euphemia Lofton Haynes becomes essential to understanding America's wartime education effort. She wasn't training soldiers directly, she was training the teachers who would train the soldiers. And she'd been doing it since 1930, a full decade before the war exposed America's mathematical crisis. Martha Euphemia Lofton was born on September 11, 1890 in Washington, D.C., to a prosperous black family that refused to accept white America's limitations. Her father, Dr. William S. Lofton, was a successful dentist and financier who had graduated from Howard University Dental College in 1888. Her mother, Lavinia Day Lofton, was a kindergarten teacher and devout Catholic who valued education above everything. This was a family that built black institutions, supported black businesses, and prepared their daughter to lead. In 1907, Euphemia graduated as valedictorian from M Street High School, later renamed Dunbar High School, the premier academic institution for black students in America. Dunbar's faculty included some of the most educated black scholars in the country, many with Ivy League degrees, and it produced graduates who became doctors, lawyers, professors, and leaders. Graduating as valedictorian meant she had outperformed the best black students in the nation's capital. She attended minor normal school, graduating in 1909 as a certified teacher, but Euphemia wanted more. In 1910, while working as an elementary school teacher to pay tuition, she enrolled at Smith College, one of the prestigious Seven Sisters women's colleges. In 1914, she graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics with a minor in psychology, becoming one of very few African American women to earn degrees from elite white institutions. On May 17, 1917, she married Harold A. Poe Haynes, a childhood friend who had earned a degree in electrical engineering from the University of Pennsylvania and was teaching at Howard University. This was a partnership of two highly educated black professionals committed to building black intellectual infrastructure through education. Euphemia taught first grade at Garrison and Garfield elementary schools, then moved to teaching mathematics at Armstrong High School and later at Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, where she eventually became chair of the mathematics department. But she wanted to understand not just mathematics, but how to teach it effectively, and how to measure whether students were actually learning. In 1930, she earned a master's degree in education from the University of Chicago. Her thesis, The Historical Development of Tests in Elementary and Secondary Mathematics, examined whether mathematical tests actually measured student ability or simply reflected biased assumptions, a question that would define her later activism. That same year, 1930, Euphemia founded the mathematics department at Minor Teachers College, an institution dedicated to training African American teachers. This wasn't just administrative work, it was nation-building. She completely redesigned the mathematics program, raising standards and demanding excellence from her students. For nearly 30 years, from 1930 to 1959, she served as professor and chair of that mathematics department. Think about the timing. Dr. Haynes built this mathematics teacher training program in 1930, right as America's mathematics education system was collapsing into irrelevance. While white schools were abandoning serious mathematics instruction, Dr. Haynes was building a program that trained black teachers in rigorous, advanced mathematics. When World War II exposed America's mathematical crisis a decade later, the teachers she had trained were already in D.C. classrooms, teaching the mathematical skills that soldiers desperately needed. During the war years, from 1941 to 1945, mathematics education became a matter of national survival. Washington, D.C., as the nation's capital and a hub of federal government activity, became central to wartime education efforts. The federal government recruited heavily from local universities, particularly institutions with strong mathematics programs like Howard University, where Dr. Haynes had deep connections through her husband and colleagues. The War Department and Navy Department established training programs in D.C. that required advanced mathematics instruction. Universities and teacher training colleges were tasked with preparing educators who could rapidly improve mathematical literacy among students who would soon become soldiers. This effort required experienced mathematics educators who understood both advanced mathematical concepts and effective pedagogy. Dr. Haynes, as chair of Minor Teachers College's mathematics department, was positioned at the intersection of these needs. Her work training black mathematics teachers during the war years had direct impact on D.C.'s ability to contribute to national mathematical literacy. The teachers she trained went into segregated black schools across Washington and taught mathematics to students who would later enlist or be drafted. Some of those students became the black soldiers, sailors, and support personnel who served in segregated military units. Others became the black mathematicians, statisticians, and technical workers who contributed to wartime logistics, supply chain calculations, and administrative mathematics in Washington's many federal agencies. While Dr. Haynes continued this essential work, she was simultaneously pursuing her own doctoral studies. She worked with Professor Aubrey Edward Landry at Catholic University on algebraic geometry, specifically problems involving symmetric correspondences in projective geometry. Her dissertation, The Determination of Sets of Independent Conditions Characterizing Certain Special Cases of Symmetric Correspondences, explored complex mathematical structures far beyond what most Americans could comprehend, let alone master. In 1943, in the middle of the war, Dr. Euphemia Lofton Haynes became the first African American woman in United States history to earn a PhD in mathematics. Not just at Catholic University, not just in Washington, D.C., in the entire country. She was the first. This happened while American soldiers were fighting in North Africa, Italy, and the Pacific, while the nation was desperately trying to train mathematically literate servicemen, while she was simultaneously training the next generation of black mathematics teachers. After earning her PhD, Dr. Haynes continued her work at Minor Teachers College and in D.C. public high schools through the end of the war and beyond. She occasionally taught part-time at Howard University. She didn't seek recognition or military commendations. She simply continued training black mathematics teachers with the same rigor and excellence she'd maintained since 1930. The post-war period revealed just how critical mathematics education had been to Allied victory. The mathematical calculations behind artillery targeting, the statistical analysis behind supply logistics, the geometric calculations behind aviation and naval navigation, these weren't just helpful, they were decisive. America's mathematical mobilization during World War II laid the groundwork for post-war developments in computing, operations research, and the space program. And throughout this entire period, Dr. Haynes had been training black mathematics teachers who were systematically excluded from recognition in mainstream historical narratives about wartime education. Her students taught in segregated schools. They trained black students who served in segregated military units. They contributed to a war effort that didn't acknowledge their full humanity, and their contributions were buried under the same racism that tried to deny them existed in the first place. Dr. Haynes retired from Minor Teachers College in 1959 after nearly 30 years as chair of the mathematics department. But retirement for her meant shifting to a different battlefield. In 1960, she was selected for the D.C. Board of Education. In July 1966, she became its president, making her the first woman, black or white, to chair the Washington, D.C. Board of Education. As board president, she waged war against two systems that destroyed black students' futures: de facto segregation and the tracking system that funneled black students into vocational programs while reserving academic programs for white students. In November 1963, she publicly challenged the validity of IQ tests, questioning whether they measured intelligence or simply reflected poverty and discrimination. Her activism contributed directly to Hobson versus Hansen in 1967, a landmark case that abolished the tracking system in D.C. schools. Beyond education, Dr. Haynes served in Catholic and community organizations throughout her life. In 1959, Pope John XXIII awarded her the papal medal Pro Ecclesia e Pontifice for exceptional service to the Catholic Church. Her husband, Dr. Harold A. Haynes, who had become deputy superintendent of D.C. public schools, died in 1978. Euphemia continued her community work until July 25, 1980, when she died at Washington Hospital Center at 89 years old. When she died, Dr. Haynes left $700,000 to Catholic University to establish the Euphemia Lofton Haynes Professorship in the Department of Education. That endowed chair still supports education faculty today. In 1975, the University of the District of Columbia awarded her an honorary doctorate of science. In 1996, Smith College established the Euphemia Lofton Haynes Mathematics Prize. In 2001, the American Mathematical Society recognized her with the Mathematical Educator Award. In 2010, the National Association of Mathematicians created the Martha Euphemia Lofton Haynes Fellowship for graduate students from underrepresented groups. But despite these honors, most Americans have never heard her name. Why? Because her story doesn't fit comfortable narratives about World War II. We celebrate the male mathematicians who worked on ballistics and cryptography. We acknowledge white women who worked as human computers for NASA. But we systematically ignore the black educators, particularly black women educators, who trained the teachers who taught the mathematics that made all of it possible. Dr. Haynes' contribution to wartime America wasn't glamorous code-breaking or dramatic calculations under pressure. It was the slow, essential work of building educational infrastructure in a community that white America wanted to keep ignorant. It was training black mathematics teachers to rigorous standards when the mainstream system had abandoned mathematics altogether. It was proving that black students could master advanced mathematics when white America insisted they couldn't. Her life reveals an uncomfortable truth. America's World War II victory depended on black intellectual labor that has been systematically erased from historical memory. The black teachers she trained, the black students they taught, The black soldiers who used that mathematics in segregated military unit, the black mathematicians and statisticians who worked in federal agencies. All of them contributed to a war effort that didn't fully acknowledge their humanity, and then history forgot them entirely. Dr. Euphemia Lofton Haynes spent 70 years fighting two wars: the war for black educational excellence and the war against the systems that tried to make black excellence impossible. She won both wars, but history tried to pretend she was never on the battlefield. The next time someone talks about America's mathematical mobilization during World War II, remember that mobilization required teachers. And those teachers required training. And in Washington, D.C., a black woman had been training them with excellence since 1930, a full decade before anyone realized how desperately they'd be needed. Dr. Euphemia Lofton Haynes didn't decode enemy messages or calculate ballistics. She did something harder. She built the educational foundation that made all of that possible in a community that white America tried to keep mathematically illiterate. And she did it with such excellence that even white America couldn't ignore the results.